Thank you very much, Omri, Hagai, Charlotte. We open the floor for comments. We'll pick up several questions, allow the speakers to respond, and then we might have another round of questions. So, questions? Yes, please.
Hi, I'd like to ask, if I'm permitted, I'd like to ask both Charlotte and Hagai. And each of you talked about the Hagai, about Palestinians as a national or ethnic category, and Charlotte on Muslims as a religious categories. And I'd like to know if how they relate themselves to the another category of Arabes or Syrio-Lebanese, como as a category maybe more popular itself, or how they are seen and how they themselves relate to this category. Thank you.
Thank you, all three of you, for your interesting presentations. My first question goes to Hagai. The picture you present seems to be pretty much free of pressure, but in how far, does Chilean society pressurize Palestinians to take on Chilenidad, no? And in how far does that, is there a difference in the Palestinian experience as compared, for example, to the German experience, because there are, of course, many Germans living there too. And for Charlotte, of course, it seems to me very logical and clear that seeing and hearing will strengthen the presence of Islam in Buenos Aires, but couldn't it also provoke fears? I mean, if we look at the discussions we have had in our country, Charlotte, you know what I mean about building mosques and so on, and the fears that came up, and or would you rather say that that has to be part of the deal? We need that in order to come out stronger. And to Omri also, I think a very good presentation. But then bringing the topic back to earth again, here some doubts. Isn't the Triple Frontier a high crime area after all? And what is the role of the Arabs in this kind of smuggling that is going on there, or am I totally mistaken? And what I thought was very nice also, and you might perhaps play a little more on that, as the frontier as being seen as a contact zone here. I mean, you have transnationalism in the title, or in the original title, and I think that is a very strong concept that you might perhaps use even more in order to pinpoint some of the facts that you have here. And I'm especially struck by this trans-border movement that is created here and brings together so many people from different backgrounds. So how do you think, could you relate to this concept of transnationalism and borders as contact zones?
Well, I found the three presentations very interesting. That's why I have a lot of questions and some comments. So I'll apologize due to the length. I'll try to be... yeah, I will try. Okay, regarding the first presentation, Hagai, basically, what was the reason for so many Palestinian people for this migration to Chile, and what about the networks, the connections? Were they mostly Christians because we saw a priest, or was there like a religious diversity? And what was the relation to the Syrian Lebanese community? That's also, and particularly also to Argentina, which had a large Syrian Lebanese community. And regarding the political participation, were there patterns, specific patterns in the Palestinian community, let's say, did they relate to a particular parties in general, or was it like similar to other Chilean communities or members of the society? Okay, so the second one, Charlotte. First, regarding the visualization of Islam, I think it would be very interesting to problematize. You mentioned President Menem. Well, actually, he was a Muslim who was somehow forced, speaking about the pressures, to convert to Catholicism. Then he reformed the constitution, or it was reformed during his term, his first term, and then he could openly come out as a Muslim. So this is a very interesting thing, I think, to problematize. Then I think it would be also interesting to relate some of the aspects of your research to the transnational networks. For instance, the reasons for these mosques to appear in the public sphere in Argentina. You've mentioned the new generations and their assimilation process, but also there's an international context. You mentioned that there's one of the mosques is strongly linked to Iran, and well, it's not by chance that this is created after at the beginning of the 80s, so after the Iranian Revolution. And well, there are many other comments, but I will keep it short. But I think it would be very interesting to study the transnational networks behind this. And finally, I was asking myself if this idea of making the Muslim community or the Muslim individual visible by showing the veil, if it's not somehow problematic, and also if this is not like taken into Argentina, a category that is perhaps more related to the problematic of Islam in Europe or in the First World War. I was wondering that. And well, finally, I found your presentation, Omri, very, very interesting. Just a comment that I saw in your and in Charlotte's presentation, it's this idea of the AMIA, the attacks against, the bomb attacks against the AMIA and the embassy, the Israeli embassy in Argentina. The participation of Hezbollah is accepted by some people, even some research, some investigations, but it is also highly contested. And not only by, by conspiracy theories, there are, so which are not serious. What it is indeed clear is the participation of anti-Semitic groups within the security forces in Argentina that have more to do with a tradition, an Argentinian, let's say, tradition of anti-Semitism. It can be that Hezbollah participated or not. It is not, because I've heard it said as a given, and that's not sure. Sorry for...
There is lots of questions. Let's please, if you can remember that.
Maybe we'll do.
We'll stop here. Let them digest and answer, and then we'll go to another round. Who goes first? Hagai.
So, about your question about the categories of the Palestinians in Chile, we can see that there is, let's say, an evolution. Because first they were labeled as Turcos, as I said, Turks, and only after a few years they became Arabs in the eyes of themselves. And when the years passed, we can see more representations of the Lebanese community, the Syrian community, of course the Palestinian community, and I think eventually the category that they took on themselves in Chile, in some ways, not all of them, is the paisanos, the paisanos with a B, because that's the Chilean way to say I'm from the same diaspora as you, but the B is like the Arabic form of making this category in Chile. But of course, with the time, all the differentiated communities had their own space, their social space, their organizations. Stefan, about your question about the pressure of being Chilean, I think it's on the contrary. The first generation, the immigrants, pressured the sons to become Chilean. Para sacar el hijo de la tienda, to take the son out of the store. So they didn't speak with them in Arabic. Most of them didn't learn Arabic until, if they wanted, a few years later. Indifferent from the German diaspora there, that I think that the difference comes from the way they were accepted in Chile, because Chile helped the European immigrants to get to Chile, and different from the Arabs that were considered uneducated. They didn't have much to contribute to the society or to the country. And I think that's the difference that makes the way they see how to take the Chilean realidad and how to feel comfortable there. About your question, why they came to Chile, and the simple choice is the simple answer is that nobody knows. Nobody knows. I asked that the question many times in many interviews. Nobody knows why the great grandfather came to Chile. Most of them arrived to Buenos Aires, and for some reason they continued to Santiago. But after the first one settled there, it was a base for chain migration to the families, the Hamulas, their neighbors, and friends. Most of them are Christians, some Catholics, but in Chile there are, I think, about 4,000 Muslims, that's it. And most of them aren't Palestinians. So that's about that. And with their political affiliation, it was diverse. And I think what happened in '73, it's the best example, because a lot of communities, ethnic communities in Chile, were divided by that event, because there were communists, and there were people supporting the military, and I saw in many interviews people telling me that that event was very hard to the Palestinian community, and it divided them by the political affiliation.
Charlotte?
Okay, about the question of the category, I have the impression that for a very long time the Muslims always told that they are Arabs, just to not say we are Muslims, to like prevent, to only say the ethnicity, but not to focus on the religion. And I have the impression that this is slowly being broken up now, that they are proud of saying it. Some are proud of saying it. And also because it's the third and fourth generation. So they say, I'm from an Arab family, but I'm Muslim Argentinian. So, yeah, that's that's my answer. I think they are focusing now on being Muslim. And another point is that a big part of the people I spoke to the Muslims I spoke to, are converts. So they are Argentinians, but they like to say I am Muslim. So that's another kind of group in this discussion. So I think questions 2 and 3 I can relate them a little bit. Could it provoke fears? Yes, of course it can, but in my opinion, what I heard from Argentinians when I told them what I'm doing, they were so surprised about, oh, they are Muslims in our country? Ah, yes, of course. I passed this big building there in Palermo, but I didn't know that this is a mosque. I'm very interested in this. So I hope that by being public now, visible now, they can like go one step before the fears and before the prejudices, and and tell about their religion and show them. And so I hope that talking can be the answer about a good integration and a good showing of their religion. If it's going in this direction, then later, I don't know. But I think that actually Argentina, with its idea of multicultural country, and we are so open, I'm not sure if this is 100%, if this is really working, but I had talks with some politicians that told me, oh yeah, of course, we are so multicultural, and they are very open and they are very welcome in our country. So, yeah. And about the veil, if it's not going into the same discussions as in Europe, the interesting thing about what I didn't mention, because I was not focusing on converts, but the most women that wear the hijab are converts. So if they are wearing the hijab, and if somebody talks to this woman and asking, who are you, what are you doing here with this hijab, then they can say, I'm an Argentinian woman. And I think this gives a double sense, a double idea of the hijab. And so, yeah, I hope that this will not be that problematic or takes it into another direction than the very populist discussions in Europe.
Omri.
So, Stefan, if my presentation made me look like a defense attorney of the Lebanese community, then no, I can understand. This is not the case. What I tried to do is to show through this forced strategies initiative how ununited the organized community is, contrary to individuals. I'm not saying they're united, but they were the only one who did initiate some action, some active action, unlike the organized community. And I'm also trying to show that the public, regional, intellectual, and municipal initiatives were held by non-Muslims. That's I'm trying to reach my argument through this. Personally, the Triple Frontier, crime speaking, is indeed a very dangerous place, and it deserves the reputation it has in this aspect. Crime speaking. Yeah? And we have to differentiate between crime and terror here, because you cannot, as I see it, it's very hard to be a successful merchant, comerciante in the Triple Frontier without engaging crime, smuggling, laundromating, and so and so and so. Okay, yeah. So it's conceived as natural, part of the DNA of the area. We could call it crime, and it is crime by our objective criteria, but that's something else. If I put myself in the 70s and 80s in the Triple Frontier, I would surely engage crime. But terror is something else. My personal opinion that there is no doubt that the Triple Frontier, like other border areas in the world and other places where there's a loose control of the state, is a place where terrorist organizations are focusing in, especially in the money recruiting, as of Hezbollah. But taking this reputation and placing it over a community of 20,000 people, that's something else, totally else, and that's something that I really focus in my research, trying to differentiate between the two. That's one thing. About transnationalism, yeah, it's the main part of my research. I'm talking about the double transnationalism as I see it. the obvious transnationalism between Lebanon and Latin America, and the local transnationalism between Paraguay and Brazil. Because afterwards, the daily practice is incredible. I mean, you wake up in the morning, you cross the bridge, you go work in Paraguay, and then you come back in the evening to Brazil. I mean, that's something that is extraordinary, and I learned that through my presence there. Maximiliano, I don't know. There are conspiracies about the part of Hezbollah in the attacks. Not in the attacks, in the AMIA attacks. The embassy, Hezbollah has. You could read a Beirut newspaper from '92. He takes full responsibility. Then he called himself the Islamic Jihad, but no question about that. About AMIA, Iran and Hezbollah can deny as much as they want, but for me, it's not questionable. I mean, it's like saying that Al Qaeda are not behind the September 11th attack. You only have to read the Nisman report, 800 pages, that clearly identified the Iranian leadership back then, Ahmad Wahidi and Mohsen Rabbani, you know, so and so and so, and Hezbollah activists departing from the Triple Frontier. Whether it's true or not, it's not the case. And the alliance with right wing in Argentina, that's also something that we need to understand, not geopolitically, but in the context of the Iranian influence in Latin America. In Venezuela, the immediate connection is with the left wing. There's an organization called Hezbollah Venezuela in Venezuela, led by a Marxist named Teodoro Darnot. And operationally, they tried to bomb the American embassy in 2006. In Argentina, there's a similar organization called Hezbollah Argentina. And they're connected with Taquara, an anti-Semitic organization, and so on and so on. So I'm not eliminating the option that there were right-wingers in the attack, but I fully put the responsibility on Iran-Hezbollah axis.
Okay. One last question, please.
Thank you for the presentations. It is partially already answered. It was a question for Omri about the collection of money. If this is Hezbollah collecting money from grassroots, like every people selling something in their own business is giving something, or there are like 5 big businessmen contributing?
So I relate to what Hussein Taijen and Fuad Fakia said. We live in the West. For us, for me, Hezbollah is a terrorist organization. For them, Hezbollah is a political, legitimate party in Lebanon. Okay? So we do have to differentiate the things. They all send money in Lebanon. They came there in order to send money to their families. And while they send money to their family, it goes through the monetary system of Hezbollah. If you do that, if you send money to buy an orphaned home in South Lebanon, then you're immediately classified as terrorist by United States and the West and Israel and so and so. So that's something we should remember. Another thing we should remember is that it's not that naive. Hezbollah makes a lot of money from extortion, taking money from rich merchants, threatening their relatives in Lebanon, for example. I know 2 cases. And we shouldn't forget that, yes, I mean, if you go to the Husseiniya mosque, to the Shiite mosque, they do collect money. For example, I'm sure that they do it as we speak now in Eid al-Fitr. They donate money to Hezbollah that takes care of their interests, the interests of the Shiites in Lebanon against the Sunnis, against the Druze, against the... and so and so. So.
Okay. Thank you very much. Please join me in thanking our speakers.